Okay, well then,
This meeting is being recorded.
welcome one and all. We've all been here and welcome to the final Planet Poetry 28 of the year. This event takes place monthly on the 28th day of each month at different times. There are different days and we get different groups who I invite to read, and there's an open reading afterwards. Basically, which makes this a little different is everybody uses the share screen. So we read along with the poet as they read to us. It gives you kind of a little different engagement. It's been done on a monthly basis, and all of them are available on YouTube, like a magazine, like Poetry Magazine, except that here you can understand most of the poems. Anyway, I will begin. I am Mark Fishbein. I am the host of this, and I've been granted become the chancellor of the Poetry Academy of the Poetry Global Network, which means we do different types of events like this, and we're going into publishing this year, and we'll be talking about that a lot. And we had an event in Nottingham, Singapore, and Chicago, and we look forward to doing more of these type of events, which are both live and on screen, kind of hybrid type events, very interesting stuff. And each one of us will read for about 6 minutes. I'll introduce us, and then afterwards an open mic, and everybody can do the same, but you have to share, because that's the way we work it here. Okay, so I will begin, break the ice, and each one of them will read about 6 minutes. Can you all see that? Okay, there we go. So the first poem I'm going to read is my most recent poem. Very often we are excited about something we recently wrote and think it's almost done. This is called In the Modern Tradition. I'm reading this book by Octavio Paz called The Children of the Mire, in which he mentions something cannot be both modern and traditional. And that's the theme of the book. I was a man infused with the modern, on a mission to the human condition to discover the source of miracles, recreate the instant of creation from the swamps, a squat, hairy beast with poor posture, calling out the creator from purgatory. That was me, back when. What's there to lose, not already lost? The future was unknown as a weather forecast before the culture of cartoon kung fu movies took over the technology. White rose smiles, Botox eyes, beasts of peers, breasts of peers, and plastic brides. Even the car miraculously drives itself while simultaneously writing poetry. I take a pill each day to neutralize anxiety. What is lost was once before and not again, a different sanity from the human stage when the traffic ticked at the speed of horse. Before the adoration of nuclear force, the high-speed rail on the steel monorail. Oh, behold the rush with endless choices to the station of no choice at all. The future, yes, ecce homo moderna. Romances at my fingertips, worn down in dead traditions to the present, idolized in the holy book of transformations. Onward to the rush of daily commute, immunity to the always new. I am humanity on a one-way ride, no longer to sleep sweet sleep or dream in simple lullabies. This is a poem. I was reading through this book, the Oxford Book of English Verse, and there's a poet named Chidwick Tichborne who wrote this elegy the night, a few hours before he was going to have his head chopped off for being Catholic or Protestant or whatever it was back in the 16th century. So this last stanza, it has many stanzas, but the last stanza kind of encapsulates it. I sought my death and found it in my womb. I looked for life and saw it was a shade. I trod the earth and knew it was my tomb, and now I die, and now I was but made. My glass is full, and now my glass is run, and now I live, and now my life is done. And he wrote this to his wife. In the end, you need just one poem in the hours before the chopping block to curse the overlords that condemn you for crimes against their treasons, your life so cheap in their bankrolls of schemes. Just one masterpiece with fountains of passion, the magnificence of presence to be alive, and how you attended to every hour, soaking in the light like a hungry flower, now in a dungeon with foul-smelling walls as your Socratic soul growls at it all, scorns humanity for complacency to misery, for stupidity for all the liturgy of evils, shame, greed of power, and power of greed. This last night in a medieval tower, you considered the infinity of the dreamless, where God soundly snores. In vain you await a miracle, a Tosca, to arrive when you will sing your way to resurrection, where the goodness of humanity dwells, liberty, liberty, via per mare. Sitting sail to a new world order. Should you sleep, you will sleep no more, and so sit by candle and write your elegy, like the poorly lamented Mr. Tichborne to his young bride, as the sun rose in his final hour to the ages, for all to know what was lost, for all to know what can be reborn. I shortened this a little bit, two more poems. This was one I wrote a couple of days ago, obviously, when Zelensky came. Zelensky wears a sweatshirt of olive green, a Hebrew Marvel hero Marine, the sexiest man alive from Kyiv, poised as his name enters history. Like Bolivar, Mandela, or Gandhi, he too a victim of hope and destiny before our eyes, like a gladiator of Rome, to a roar in the empire's shining dome. How he thrills our faith with defiance, and in his glance the triumph of a free man who holds his stance, who will not lick the Kremlin's ass. You please for weapons, his people die for us. The Senate hails the warrior, his reward of patriots. And I'll end with this poem, which I wrote 2 years ago, around this time on the eve of 2021. And I looked at it the other day and, well, obviously not much has changed. Once the nation was split like wolf packs, fighting over a bloody carcass. Wars and corruption was all the news, and everybody grew their hair long. And what did all the tumult bring? All we wanted was to laugh again like the children we were inside. The roaring years of drugs and fun, roller skating to a sonic drum. Love feels homeless on the streets of now. In history's dialectic of despair, everything's impossibly complex, and yet the same chaos governs all things. Tell me what the future brings. Who would dare? What will be known of us, ancient ones, dancing like the dervishes, as the planet melts and air becomes thick? We are each part of it. We all take our share. Each of us, alone, spinning from the past, find a home for hope at last. And thank you for allowing me that. Yeah, I mean, afterwards, you care to mute or have any comments left to hear, or otherwise we just move on. And thank you very much for listening.
Mark, I think one of those poems had one of my favorite lines of yours, and I forgive me for not remembering it, but something about in that poetry, that poem based on the poem from the 16th century, where you said the crimes against their treasons or whatever, those two lines, fabulous. I loved it.
Well, I'll send it to you. By the way, all these
Yeah,
poems,
please.
as this is recorded, and right afterwards, I get it on the cloud and I put it on YouTube, and I list everybody as you read, what time you read, and all the rest, like a magazine. So you can always look at this stuff, our stuff later. So Laura, because of your situation, did you want to read now? Are you okay with that?
Yes, that would be great, Mark. Thank you.
Sure. Well, let me introduce Laura a little bit. I grabbed her bio quickly. You're an expat living right now in Austria. I have it here in England. It was your last stop. Laura Grevel is a performance poet, blogger, and fiction writer from Texas. She began performing in the 90s in Texas, performed in Austria, Switzerland, recent often years, East Midlands, United Kingdom, and recently she's been working to make informants videos online, YouTube viewing during the pandemic. She's co-founder of Poets for Refugees, which has a 2021 collaborative video welcoming refugees, migrants, and immigrants titled Girl Walking Across Europe. Laura.
Thank you very much, Mark. I appreciate you letting me come in here. Here's 3 poems that are endings, beginnings pieces for this season of the year. Okay, wait, do need to share, sorry. Okay. Rain. Rain comes when it's needed, washes the street clean. After the long wait in the hovering thickness, the guests arrive, healthy, old, alive. After the long wait for the answer, they unpack the car, bring the cake inside. After the long wait for friends, you unpack the stories, slice them thick and thin. After the long wait with wood stacks of questions, they threaten to roll. After the long wait in the forest of nothing, the friends reach out their hands. After the long wait for hope, the rain begins to fall on friend and foe, washes the slurry out, calms with whispering words. The next piece is called Children. And one of my favorite poets is Khalil Gibran, so you will gather children, those you seeded and not, from the fields and cities, from the very air. You will gather them because it is predestined to meet them and share. Love is a commodity in great demand. Attention is a precursor to giving a hand. Be not timid, be bold, be generous. Walk the road knowing the paths will connect. From the east and west, the north and south, they'll arrive with questions, with avenues for advice, with grief and joy. They'll arrive from all continents. They'll arrive with contests and baskets. They'll arrive with a boat for the future. There may not be a place for you on board, but there will be space for your spirit, your offering to those who sail. And then the last piece is a lighthearted piece. I was at a workshop and they asked us to do a golden shovel, which is a form where you take a line, say from a poem, and you write your own poem using that line, all the words in order as the last word, which I took the first line from Elizabeth Barrett Browning, Sonnet 43, and the line is, "How do I love thee? Let me count the ways." In that first lunch date where we arrived at exactly the same time, how could I know that this was the fried green tomato moment? Do you remember how we harvested the fruit in August heat in your garden? I remember the poem you read when you first called out of the blue. Is love really more than the smell of hot grease frying on the griddle with thee? Is it more than ketchup on fresh, warm French fries at Dirty Martin's comeback? Let me hear the milkshakes roar, served by aging waitresses in 1960s hair. Me, I remember that day too. The first time we kissed, sitting on the cat-scratched couch. Count the workmen eating burgers in paint-dripped overalls? I count on your phone calls. I count the evening, sitting across a hot stack of pancakes from you, knowing I was waiting for you always. Thank you.
Got it. Yeah, I got it.
Beautiful.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Actually, Laura, one of the things that I appreciate about page poets is the intention on taking your breaths. Because usually performance poets are so energetic that they stumble on letters or words. So thank you for taking your time.
Well, thank you. I'm ill. That slows me down even more.
Well, also, I mean, there's been in the poetry group that I'm in, there's an ongoing discussion about prose poetry and what makes prose poetry work. And I think for myself, it's very rare for prose poetry to work as you worked it. Had I not seen the poems, I would not know that they were prose poems. If I was listening to it on the radio or something like that, which is kind of interesting. And I'd love to continue the conversation because it's such a fascinating and urgent one of the day. Hopefully you'll have some time in the future. I'll give a workshop on the prose poem from your point of view. I'd love to do that. Well, thank you, Laura. That was really, besides that last poem, I think we all got a kick out of it. It was great. Thank you very much. So on next poet, I'm just going to go with who we have here. I mean, I have all these people on the list that I don't know why they're not here, but you know, that I see that happens very commonly. And so I've just gotten used to it, is what it is. So I'm going to ask Lakan to read next. Lakan is from Manila, the creator of the Global Poetry Network, as well known throughout the Zoom community, having been to maybe about 2,000 different events over the last so many years in 20 different countries. And he's published in numerous books and all that, winner of the Singapore Slam, a wonderful addition to the Zoom poetry scene. Lakan.
Hello, everyone. Oh, look at that. You can see me. I've actually, this is the first time I've put my camera on, I think, in 3 months. So I've attended open mics and poetry readings and even attended Exicom meetings of PGN without turning my camera on. But, you know, I love Mark. So, magandang umaga. Good morning, everyone. My name is Lakan, and I'm from the Poetry Global Network and Asia Pacific Poetry Slam. And I am based in Pilipinas, or in English, the Philippines. So I have 2 pieces for today. The first one, just a brief intro. I used to hate structure. I hated it because it was limiting for me. So, but the likes of Mark Fishbein changed that for me. Because I think when you know the rules, when you know the laws, you know when to bend it, break it, or change it altogether. So this is, oh, shoot. Okay. This is a poem that I wrote for Tupelo Press in the US, and I'm grateful that they actually published it. And this has structure. So this is called Shots Fired. Drink my borrowed skin, better than your sin. Let every gulp slide, your guilt set aside. Imbibe a youth's grin, your consciousness will spin. Respect is a stride, $1's worth pride. These days easy, when age is dizzy. Legs can bend its curve. I'm ready to serve. Like a colony, swigged in Makati. Red rigged to deserve a foreigner's verve as neon lights blur. Law becomes a slur. I kiss your paid night, my tongue will incite a frosty shoot stir. 3 hour offer. Turning right is my right. Sogo is in sight. Deal is in motion, like my free nation. I proceed with caution, high exploitation. I proceed with caution, high exploitation. Deal is in motion, like my free nation. Turning right is my right. Sogo is in sight. A frosty shoot stir. 3 hour offer. I kiss your paid night. My tongue will incite as neon lights blur. Law becomes a slur, red rigged to deserve a foreigner's verve. Like a colony, swigged in Makati. Legs can bend its curve. I'm ready to serve. Visa is easy when age is dizzy. Respect is a stride, $1's worth pride. Imbibe a youth's grin, your conscience will spin. Let every gulp slide, your guilt set aside. Drink my borrowed skin, better than your sin. Let every gulp slide, imbibe a youth's grin. Respect is a stride, visa is easy. Legs can bend its curve like a colony. Red rigged to deserve as neon lights blur. I kiss your paid night, a frosty shoot stir. Turning right is my right. Dead deal is in motion. I proceed with caution. High expectation, like my free nation. Sucker is in sight. 3 hour offer. My tongue will incite. Law becomes a slur. A foreigner's verve. Swigged in Makati. I'm ready to serve. But age is dizzy. $1's worth pride. Your conscience is sin. Your guilt set aside. Better than your sin. So I used Shakespearean sonnet with the A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G, and I did, it's a palindrome, and I did a double rhyme scheme on each line, and iambic pentameter, of course, and the volta. So there. My next one is, this is the first poem that I brought to Mark and the DC Poetry Collective, and I was so surprised about their reaction. And this is actually an anchor poem for my manuscript that's now being reviewed. It's my first full collection, and I've waited for 5 years to write a full collection. So this is, the manuscript's name is When Stars Are Traitors, and this is the anchor poem. The title is called Labeled. Waking up would never be the same. Being drugged never felt this hollow. My disdyed body stitched to another, just met a few hours ago. Numbed, something I felt. I couldn't see much, but forgetfulness remembers how he unbuttoned my breath with his fist, clenched, flicking the threads of how to be this humane. I did mumble if I could keep even the holes that made me breathe. I couldn't. He even unzipped the broken parts that made me less human. What is less than that? Pretending doesn't work. I can't trick my senses tonight. I wanted to lie. Being undressed can liberate my skin from his whiskey breath. I knew I was drunk. Not enough to blank a memory of how the moon is a coward when stars are traitors. I wanted help. The sky hit them like an accomplice. Time was his ally, a bystander that stripped longer than it should, coming itself drenched like his shirt, striped beside my cheek that forgot how my mother kisses it. Still, her my weak eyes ironed to a pillow. His eye was in my pillow. It knew exactly how to blink away the whole parts of me. They're gone. I'd never see them again. He knew how to pin me lower than the bed. I felt his unconquerable hunger. Palm on wrist, lips on lobe, laughter on prayer, over and over and over again. I thought it was over. Again, another. There are others. 4 a.m. was my redemption. Exhaustion. I wore it like a half-sleeved savior. I'm a believer. God knows patience. Being more than naked after death wasn't enough. My folded body limboed in sheets till morning. They clothed me. How they ripped me unaware. Consent isn't a brand. They branded me, sliding me in a tailored fit and some sewn with a marked fabric, tainted silver, without lines on it. It blends rape. They wrapped it without names and left the tatters of my person on a dawn sidewalk that walks those shadows to this day. Some say it looks good on me. I'm still wearing it 5 years after. Maraming salamat. Thank you very much.
Always after your readings, Lakan, I think there's a broad silence. Too exhausted, all that.
Lakan, it was nice to see you again after a long time.
Well, thank you for sharing those. I mean, they're both, besides the intimacy, they are poetry, you know, so they have they work on many levels. Tough stuff. Thank you, Lakan. I'm going to just pause. So our next reader, Prosser Stirling, whose alibis include corporate international relations, theater, performance, art, music, graphic arts, and discussing African art with visitors at the Smithsonian, a native of Galveston, Texas, like Laura and like David. Everybody's from Texas today. He lived in New Orleans, Paris, and Florence before making Washington, D.C. Prosser has been a longtime participant in the D.C. poetry group and is a word painter with dazzling poems. And Prosser, I see you put one on, so thank you. And you're on mute, I see. Yeah, you're still muted, Prosser. Can you hear me? Yeah, Prosser, can you not hear that you're on mute?
Here we go.
Okay, I started again. Thank you.
Thank you. Privilege being with you all today. Greyhound. Tinted windows taint the law of goodbye, where the mist of eye is lost in translation. Mudguards wave, dealing diesel, double-wheel treads attack the tar. In the gravid luggage bay, sturdy as a banker's box, my drab duffel, dimpled and plump, finally reclines, greyhound lazy, below hips settling in to a seat-back squeeze. Candy wrappers stuffed between cushions, I wedge between states in the comforting drone of the rumble zone to reclaim no man's land, released from where I've been, unknown to where I'm going, immaculate of want or regret. Time sighs sealed in a tin, rubber wipers flip-flop miles into rain until air brakes release exhausted hiss, humming and homing to rest, and foreign feet hit the sheen of gasoline on rain-hot blacktop. Next is Charleston. Flexile as a winter heart could be, whiskey straight and soda perfect, she wears a Christian wide size and bides by the Chatham House rule. Toothy with tongue charm, dances to the radio all night in nothing but a slip, her mother's pearls, and a ring ruby deep as a mine. Says we'll go down to Charleston to waste a few days, drink the heat and sweat ear to ear, rhapsody, dirty rice, juleps, and crab on a wrought iron white trim veranda, ceilinged in breezy light blue. Why not let's go, says I, bursting from seamed silence at the crossroad of curious and crazy. It's either a chain that pulls or a rod that pushes. But did you know when I scuff up the stairs, sanded smooth by rough soles to your upper stories, feeling cellophane light, my mind retires as private prisoner of your ripstop soul, suddenly sewn into your hems. It would take a Newton times 10 to shove my shoulder loose from the sill of your pillowed promises. In the elbow room. This was actually the name of a bar in Galveston. Nights age to new mornings at the elbow room, at the loud hours, solo chuggers shrug while two quick sippers unstirrup from stool to floor. His hair has the shiny shellac of jumping mackerel. Her broken bangs pick at the forehead in a suburban way. Field and stream meets better homes and gardens. Lips to ear they agree. He checks his waistband with a tug. She billows her skirts to a fluff. Arm in arm they ritz away in a lover's bubble into downtown's yellowed streets. Nights age to new mornings at the elbow room, midship and wave in, grown as boulders and unhaired faces, Hawaiian shirts and floral clash, lobster their pink fists and inked forearms to the bar, Popeye proud and steak ready, toned tonsils to croon like righteous brothers when the jukebox plays something slow. The one with wayside eyes has glances crazy as a crowbar. Not knowing how the steam began, he holds his heat nonetheless and lines up quarters for late serenades. Nights age to new mornings at the elbow room. Last drinkers drop away when nocturnal tactics gambled go bust. Field and garden, far away, sleep deep and slow, while crowbar and chorus file out in song. Now it's gone, gone, gone. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Obsequies. From the hollow closet beneath the stairs, I reach for a suit, not charcoal, but late gray, saddled over shoulder frame and doubled at crossbar where above the knee might be. Bachelored wire hangers bangling the rod tinkle like chimes unrequited to wind, lost chords in uneven keys for the funeral of someone close. Church hymns will be cider sweet, eulogies cling to heart like catbrier. Cut away from the half of what was, I bow, dark-suited, underexposed, like boneless fields of X-ray, blurry and scant, to offer stone-mouthed odes, borne by wool, the smell of mothballs, and scarred wallpaper. I'm finishing today with On the Night of Shooting Stars. My heart sends tenders to skim your skin in ringlets like a skater on a frozen pond, in thatched tracks like a beetle across Sahara sand. Everything is right. Every star drops where it should. Faces lose their patterns. Fingerprints fall away. All renews. Something big watches us with animacy of an older world. Is it a god being born or two souls at eclipse about to detonate from nearness? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Prosser. I think, yeah, very much, yeah. The type of poems that gonna keep you on the page, that's for sure. And
Thank you, Mark.
keep you engaged to go back to it, and that's what your poetry it compels you to stop. It arrests you to stay on the page. There's so much. Each line has such a nice development to it. Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm so sure we all really enjoyed that. As sometimes people do, I'm not as good at it as others. They put in comments in the chat. I wish I could type faster. I know some people are really good at it. For me, I find if I start typing, I have a lot of trouble just focusing on what I'm doing. So I don't do it as much as I should. But certainly, if you're able to, I'm sure the poets appreciate it. Our next poet, I'm going to ask David and Susie. I'm waiting for Sanjana to come in. She's going to help me try to figure out how to download your poems, or you could just send it to me in the body of an email. I can then I can read it for you that way. That would be very easy.
I sent mine to you in an email. I've sent mine. It's Robert's that were the problem.
Okay. Then I'll pick. Let me introduce the next poet, and then I'll pick it up, and we'll get from there. Thank you very much for your patience. And next is David Siller. David is based in Queens, New York, where I am from, actually. A poet, translator, occasional actor, director. He's studied Francophile literature, focusing on poetry and theater. Currently a professor of French at the university in Queens. He is a voracious reader, film, TV, a comic book buff, and knows more about French hip hop than you could possibly imagine. I'm sure it's interesting to Susie and Robert, who living in France right now. You might find him where he lives in Queens or on Waxy and Poetic. David.
All right, thank you. There we go. Some of you have known that I write a lot of ecstatic poetry, and I'm not usually one to show the painting with the poem, because I think the poem should stand on its own, and then the painting has another layer. But because we have the advantage of the screen share, I'll show the painting today. This first poem is called The Kiss. It's from a painting by Picasso in February of 1930. It is awkward, yes, but all the better to practice. You must first, my dear, lean your head towards me, hair falling behind you like water falling just before the great maw of tropical cave. Your tongue, sharp isosceles, must invite you, sir, tilting head slightly back, your upper lip above hers, your tongue too, arrowhead, trying to pierce her. Keep your eyes open. It is awkward, yes. Do not touch tongue yet. open-mouthed, imagine devouring the other, engulf breath and voice and time. Do not touch tongues yet. Open-eyed, enter the other mouth, consume and be consumed. Hold there, first kiss, first loss. I will sketch you. It is awkward, yes. Two forms always almost coming together. Awkward. To enter the other in voice and breath. Awkward. Forward. You will not get this back, except perhaps when you open cupboard door. This next poem is called Sometimes a Letter Makes All the Difference. On the one sheet, I thought it read Les larmes de pirate, pirate tears, the buccaneer's lament, and there, dancing in my head, visions of this now touching, triumphant musical. The story of several old salts in their last journey on the high seas, one more marauding adventure, plundering and pillaging, high seas hijinks. Yes, pirate tears, maybe even a little movie musical, book by Sondheim, old shanties turned into stirring anthems and rousing reminiscences. Pirate tears, the journey continues. You might leave the sun, but the sea stays within you. I saw the opening number, sails unfurled, the timpani beating the ocean's rhythm, the strings sounding the sun's relentless raying, the woodwinds blowing the whitecap, wet cottony puffs. And enter the pirates in twos and threes, this first song anthemic and assertive, a work song, a friendship song, an ode to the ocean and open voyages. A brief bridge, mutinous miscreants brought from below to bob for shark fins, saved at the last minute by titillating tap dance up and down the plank. No better homage to the pirate's plight than a peg leg patter pullback. Pirate tears, the booty's the thing. The treasure map to doubloons and show tunes. X marks the spot for the final curtain call of this troop of ancient mariners. Hey ho ho, one final buckle to swash. One more skull and crossbones to fly, the buccaneers' last booty call. But no, no. The poster said Les lames de pirate. Pirate blades, sharp, bloody thirsty, completely counter to some musical last hurrah. Pirate blades, most definitely fodder for a traditional French farce. And my last poem today is called Code Switching Number 7. The French say billet doux, a gentle pairing of noun and adjective to mean love letter. And though billet can mean letter, doux is not love. Doux is sweet, honey dripping down thighs, honeyed words dripping down pens. Doux is soft, cottoned paper, perfumed, perfectly textured to pinch between index and thumb, words not whispered but written, ink long dried and without echo. Doux is light, feather-like loose leaves of paper dropping from envelopes, sweet, soft missive lifting cloud-like the reader. So the soft, sweet, light letter, the billet doux. And billet looks exactly like billet. And once upon a time, archaic time, according to certain established arbiters of connotation and denotation, billet too meant a short letter or note. But we here, not too fond of love or correspondence, prefer our billets to be military, boarding rowdy roughnecks in roomy residences, expressly forbidden in less than archaic founding documents. So the billet then is not a billet, but a billet is also a ticket, as in billet d'avion, fly me, direct, JFK to CDG, billet de train, Eurostar to Brussels, or channel under channel to King's Cross, billet de cinéma, rom-com showing at the Gaumont Champs-Élysées. And this reminds me of the expression avoir un ticket avec quelqu'un, as in, you have a ticket with me. Such a beautiful metaphor for what 80s pop songs empowered in me and having a crush on you, for what 90s R&B morphed into euphemism, for what euphemisms are used for. But the French, tu as un ticket avec moi. You have the ticket, the control. You have with a simple sheet of paper, a blank check, a ticket to fly, a ride, a billet doux, a soft, sweet, light letter commanding your lodging, my longing, somewhere in here. Thank you.
Merci. That was great.
Je t'en prie.
Really, yeah. She has a ticket to ride in French. That was great. I think we, whether we were Francophiles or not, that was last poem is, indeed, and the other stuff. Love looking at how you put your stuff on the page and how you read it. It's great fun and all that. Good poems. Thank you, David.
Très bien fait, David.
Yeah.
Merci
indeed.
beaucoup. I often wonder, like, and we talk about line breaks and prose poems and stuff, and I often wonder if we expect to hear a line break when we hear a poem read, right? If we don't see it on the page, if we don't see it on the screen share, are we expecting to hear when the line breaks are? So that's something for discussion too, I think.
Yeah, we had a recent workshop on enjambment, and it taught me a lot in terms of how different poets approach, when you enjam the line. And you certainly have mastered a certain way of doing it by yourself, which I think is great. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Susie and Robert, the only poem I can get from you is the one you sent in the PDF. So I'm waiting for Sunny to come to help try to put it all together. I cannot open the Google Docs. It requires that you give me access, and it's just not happening. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I thought I sent you an email. Sorry, I thought I sent you an email with my
I did
3
not
lines on.
I
You didn't
yeah, I
get
did
it?
not.
I'm
I
sorry.
did not receive it. Just put the body. Just put the poems in the email, like in the body of the text, and then I'll just
I did try. Yeah,
see if you can try to do that. And
Yeah.
in the meantime, Leslie's not here. Sunny, our next is Christopher George is our next poet here on this list that I have. He's born in Liverpool, a well-known face among the Zoom crowd here. Born in 1948. Immigrated to the US at the age of 7 in 1955, returned to the UK, was there for the swinging 60s, re-emerged in the US in 68 and studied poetry with Sister Maura Eichner and Elliott Coleman. Has been published in journals worldwide, as a historian, done workshops on Edgar Allan Poe, Jack the Ripper, and a variety of others, I'm sure. Great historian. The War of 1812 is one of the great historians of the War of 1812, indeed, besides being a wonderful poet. So, take it away.
Right. Thank you, Mark. All right, here we go. Can we mute?
Yeah, Susie, I'm gonna have to. I think it's. I'll take care of it.
Hilbury Island is an island not too far from Liverpool. It's in the Dee estuary. You can walk out to it when it's low tide. Christmas Eve on Hilbury Island. Evening descends, the tide's coming in, sealing off Hilbury from the mainland. We have a picnic hamper, a thermos of coffee, Christmas pud thick with raisins and rum sauce. Snow settles in the grass, melts on the tide. Above, on the observation tower, a kestrel eats a vole. Good King Wenceslas drifts on the wind, interspersed with the bark of seals. Resolutions last till you resolve to break them. And what's the use of promising to do something if you can't change your mind? Midwinter in the farmhouse. Outside it is snowing. A lone robin grubs for millet seeds on the cement path. Inside it's steamy. Banana plant fronds stretched to the roof, platforms for monkeys. Water blinks like an eye in a purple bromeliad. Bee buzzes trapped in nectar of a pitcher plant. We explore musty forest of mosses and ferns, hidden niches with white cattleya orchids, throated with speckled saffron. The snow melts on glass above us, but in here it is eternal summer. My hand presses yours. Your thumb traces a hieroglyph on my palm. Annapolis Harbor at Christmas to Barbara. We find the time after your appointment at the clinic on my work day, after we fight traffic in drenching Maryland rain to make it late to my evening lecture, the spaghetti supper. We find time as snow sifts down, time for you and time for me. The snow melts in the dock's dark waters and on the bronze statue of Alex Haley as he reads to the bronze children to tell them how Kunta Kinte landed here all those generations ago as a slave aboard the slave ship Lord Ligonier. And you want badly to see the ocean, Bob, but this isn't the sea, but just an arm of the Chesapeake Bay. Yet I feel we're walking barefoot on a beach in sand dunes among scrubby grass at the ocean in Maryland in Africa. And I'll end with this one, ekphrastic poem, Lifting the Elephant. Detail, lifting an elephant single-handedly. Farouk Nizad so astonishes two brothers that they converted to Islam. India, circa 1570, Mughal dynasty painting from the adventures of Hamza at the Sackler Gallery, Smithsonian Institution, Washington, D.C. Brothers, some mornings I am defeated by a feather. In the act that made you worship Allah, when I lifted the elephant in the sun's eye, I chose courage over indolence, passion over languor. The elephant's breath burned my cheek like a volcano. Her armored flesh sandpapered my palms. Sweat coursed down my arms. As I held the world in my hands, I felt bereft of friends. Kings and armies stood by, waiting on the change of seasons. After years of famine and death, their banners hung limp in the hiatus, hunting a fair wind on the Silk Road to bring the trade caravans once more. Camels and ashes, cargoed with dates, spices, liniments, healing roots for our sick, sweetmeats and trinkets for the Regina's chamber. Perched on my fingertips, life waited to start again. I held my breath, awash in the elephant's stink. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher.
That was
Yeah,
great.
interesting approach to ekphrastic work. All your poems seem to be going a little bit. They always have a little bit of background now, if they're not directly ekphrastic or that. And like the idea of sharing the work of art with the poem is one that's an open question that we've been discussing from time to time. And sometimes I think it's most urgent, certainly in your last poem, because I think for us to imagine this painting would have been very difficult. But
I think it helps. I think you need to know where the inspiration came from.
yeah, that's a wonderful argument, discussion for a panel group, which we once had, whether or not when does ekphrastic work with and without the painting. I'm one that's in the school that think that it is very urgently necessary, and there are others who think it's not so much necessary. I think it's a great conversation for poets to have. But anyway, your poetry is sublime with the range that you're doing. Thanks for the pictures that you present with it.
Thank you.
And our next poet, while I'm waiting to try to get this together for you, Susie, I still don't have it. I still have not received anything in my, are you sending it to my email address?
Yes.
That I sent to you. I should be getting
I thought
it.
Robert
Our
just
next-
sent them. I'm sorry.
I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
I'll just
Our
read
next
them.
poet, Robert
Comment.
Fleming, and then I'll try to figure that out. Okay. And let me introduce
I can
Robert.
read them. Just read them. I can just read them.
Yeah, maybe we'll do that at the end. Okay. But
Okay.
if so, but you know, it
I
takes
know, I
away a little
understand.
from the group. You
I
can read
know.
one, and then maybe next time we
Sorry.
can work a little bit closer together in
It's the
beforehand.
computers, I think, and everything's up.
Sure, sure. Well, let me
Sorry.
introduce Robert, a word artist who lives in Lewis, Delaware, on the subject of words and paint and art. He follows his mother as a visual artist and his grandfather as a poet. First art show was obscene graffiti on a high school bathroom brick wall. He is the 2022 winner of the San Gabriel Valley California Broadside, one poem, and the 2021 winner of the Best of Mad Swirl Poetry. Robert Fleming.
Good evening. I'm Robert Fleming, a word artist from Delaware, and I'm going to share some examples of visual poetry today. So the element of visual poetry I'm going to share on today is called layers, and that is placing text or images on top of other text and images. And the main question I ask myself is, what will be in front and what will be in the back? When I'm putting text on the page, I'm always focused on how to make the text readable for the viewer. And one of the ways I pick the color of the text is I pick the opposite color of the graphic image which is behind it. So if the background is blue, I'll try the text color of orange, which is the opposite of blue. This is an example of a word art with no layers. On this one, the visual image is separated from the text. It was initially a haiku. Invisible eye clamps, Edith Head costume design, Norma Desmond eyes. And it was inspired by the movie Sunset Boulevard, directed by Billy Wilder. The next one is an example of a word art where I've made the entire image the background of the piece. So I have a graphic image of a piece of rust, and I made that the background. And then I put text on top of it. I'm going to read the text. You make me feel like a coon hound run over by a Ford F-150 truck. So when I look at the background, I see that the background is mostly blue, and I picked the text on the color wheel to be the opposite of blue, which is orange. And I also tried it changing the text to red. And this is another example, which is more complicated. This is when there are multiple different types of layers in the poem. So let me first read it. Cross out syndactyly, hand pulls gun trigger. Syndactyly hand pulls gun trigger, cross out. Syndactyly hand survives. So at the top of the image, we have a layer of two graphic images, the firearm in the hand, and then syndactyly I have the cross out symbol over text. And then I have text over the graphic image. The tools I used in this work is, in selecting the images, I use Google search. And in reducing and cropping the tools, I use Window Photo. To remove background, I use Adobe Background Remover. And for the text, I use Microsoft Word and in Paint. And to integrate the text and images, I use the Color Wheel and Canva. And thank you for letting me show some examples of visual poems and how the different types of layering you can do.
It's great. Brilliant.
Wow. I don't know what to say.
I think that's such an interesting way to sort of follow up with the comments just after Christopher got to read and talk about how it's important to know the inspiration and to talk about process. Like, what a great sort of follow-up, sort of show how that might look for something as innovative as this image poetry that he was doing. So
like
Wow.
a tutorial as well as a poetry reading.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. I'm glad you're not giving me a test on it, though.
Oh, that comes later, I'm sure.
And I'm going to put in the chat the links to the link to the presentation in case you want to see it again, in case you're interested in trying some visual poetry.
Well, thanks for sharing your thing with us. It's really fascinating. I've never seen anything quite like it. Thank you. Which Susie or Robert, who wrote the book, this particular poem? Let me that I have here, Berlin Tragedy.
Robert.
Oh, so let me
Robert
introduce.
wrote it.
This is a poem from Robert Cole. I think both of you guys living in Paris at this time, are you not?
Yes.
Indeed. So
I got
Robert and
to
Susie
see-
are living in Paris, has been published in many magazines and journals in the UK and USA, including Ambit, Gargoyle, and Van Gogh's Ear. 7 collections of poetry such as Inheritance, Mandeville Press, Manchi's Revenge, Top Hill Press, and Spool, etc. Books launched at Shakespeare and Company in Paris. Edited Chimera Magazine for 10 years. Robert Cole's a voice I've heard from time to time in some of the open mics, and I'm glad to see his poem and to join us here. Thank you, Robert. Here's your poem.
Oh, shit, man.
Can you,
Only trouble is, I've got to find it on here.
can't you read it?
I'm a
on
bit
here?
kind of spaced at the moment.
I can make it larger for you
My
here.
drawing,
Can you
yeah,
make it
and-
larger? Yeah.
No,
Yeah, sure.
I
How's
got
that?
the degeneration.
Look, you can read that. It's large.
I can probably read that, yeah.
Okay.
Shadows and die cast by the homunculus buried and burnt the celestial bodies. Trajectories of ash past the phylacteries to the shadow factories. The crest of forests, spirals of smoke from fuel grey skeletal guards that slam the door on the world's camouflage. A sacrificial sun, starved and an etiolated plant, quests its tendrils through the cracks in time. A searchlight plays on the shoots cut as soon as inspected. An atomic cranium of a Dresden porcelain aristocratic figurine, fingers crack knuckles and continue to shapeshift into a gypsy girl. Camouflage of gitane smoke issuing from her lips. Opprobrium of thunderheads, Odin's raven, long flown away. A hammer and sickle etched on the airport glass. Long range across the steppes, peoples wander. Lucifer rising in the burning blockhouses. Gulags, est nicht lassen, a sign of wonder that read Van der Lubbe torched the Reichstag. A Faustian pact under a glitter ball dances shapeshift duke. cracks in time to the airport glass, darkly tendrils feel their way through. A pink star entwined around a cabaret artiste, Icarus winged in the gloom of the street, a sacrificial sun in dress of a gypsy girl. Atomic cranium shakes the die in its velvet box. Feel grey, Junkers, Akzen Act, camouflage in the smoke of a pilot, stink of roast pork driven by the windsock, death's head insignia, boots reflecting in the fish-eyed corridor, shivered like a fallen monocle on the breast of the cabaret artiste, aping the authorities, caught in the light from the fractured glitter ball. RAF bombers saturate the desert of Wilhelmstrasse.
Oh,
That was
Wow.
it.
well,
I'm sorry about kind of the false starts there, man. I didn't get my trumpet to go or my clarinet to go. Because I'm kind of fucked up in the moment. Forgive
no,
me.
that's why I invited you to read, Robert, is I always wanted to see your poetry is the type, it's a type which demands that you stay there for a while on each line. The language is so dense, and your vocabulary is so high that I need a second reading of that for sure. I mean, there's just so much in there, and so I appreciate you you're coming to share one of your poems with us. And next time, come with a bunch more. We'll work in advance so that I'll have them for you.
I've got a bunch here. If you want me to do some extramural work,
I'd rather
got
just
like
see them
5
and keep to
minutes,
the
Susie,
integrity of
she's
the
got some
event
work.
that I do. But Susie, because of the
yeah.
time and all that, why don't you read us a poem just to give us a taste of your work? And next time we'll work in advance and we'll get your poem so you can share with us.
Okay. I'm just going to get it. All right.
And afterwards, if anyone who has not read, who's here, David and Dwayne and Maureen, or Naima, please feel free to jump in, and Jenny or anyone else, but please try to jump in, okay? Oh, Maureen Medina, you're here. You'll be our next reader and close us off. I'm sorry, I didn't see you in the corner there. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Susie. Oh, let me introduce you a little bit faster. Susie is published in many literary magazines, including Ambit and Gargoyle, featured recently in She Magazine, a new collection being published this year in Littoral Press UKNovels. She has some published novels, Dangerous Angel and 69. Prose editor of Chimera Magazine for 10 years. Susie, hi.
Right, this is, I live in Brittany as well, which you said, but this is called Mushroom Cloud. Swimming in the seas of Europa, I will make my escape, surrounded by VIPs and misplaced persons, weird dragons, multicolored and scary, smooth or scaly with diamantine apes. Would I ever be accepted up there in space? Is this really the end with no heaven and no angels advertising the place? With a flap of my wings, I will fly or sit on a toadstool on a cannabis high, with my exploding pipe, a pipe of dreams, so it seems. Like a cat, I've lived 9 lives. I survived to tell you the tale. I'm cloned out of sunlight. I'm broken down stars. Just hand me that cyanide pill and I'll go. No more fighting for me. Yet utopia has denied me. Though I'm covered in scars, I brush the dust from my coat and plunge into the waves, floating in salt, far away from the alien shore, the torture of atomic winter. Crying infants followed me here, swimming by my side, a bellwether priestess in white silken dress. I'm chased by a white puffy cloud, determined to finish me off. I'm losing the plot. It's Disney inspired. It's a joke, but I'm losing my hair. Do I care? Just think of the half-life down there. Nihilism is the name of the game. That's a poem. That was it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's got a lot. Look forward to seeing that again and hearing that again. That's great poems. And you pick a line here or pick up a line there, but don't take the cyanide pill. Thank you. Well, thank you. And the last part, sorry, I didn't see in the corner there, Maureen. Yeah, and what a lovely way to end. Maureen is the author of My Fears Out Loud, her debut poetry collection. She facilitates writing workshops with the goals of healing and catharsis. She advocates for both human and non-human animals and asserts that all oppression is connected, in alignment with the idea that none of us are free unless we are all free. Maureen hopes to inspire the pursuit of collective liberation through her writing, and a little bit about your book, which you can of course put into the chat. And Maureen, hi, and you're on mute.
Hello, thank you so much for having me here. I'm really grateful to witness all of you and your artistry. I discovered poetry as a form of refuge, and so my style is more confessional and free verse. And I found it to be, the more I learn about poetry, I feel like it's most authentic to who I am and how I can best convey my feelings. So the holidays are really difficult for me, and I've had a lot of revelations this year. So this piece is quite long, but it is just to capture some of my reflections. So let me try to share screen here. Christmas reminds me of a knife grating against toast, buttering me up with words they shouldn't say, like presents under the tree, so meticulously dressed in the white skirt you've been meaning to replace, so that the fallen leaves don't show. The shedding and undoing are too real for the holidays, where the snow never melts into dreary gray puddles of reality. Christmas reminds me of joy wrapped in sadness, and however gingerly I try to unfold and unveil my gifts, the paper always rips, the ink always smears, and the ribbon loses its curl. As I shred their careful concealment of what lies beneath, I draw a million conclusions in my head. You're spoiled, they say, invalidating me for years to come, like those "it's not you, it's me" shirts, only it's all of us, and I'm the only one who knows. I'd lighten up like Rudolph's nose if I hadn't learned young how to dim my own light. Christmas reminds me of perfectly tied bows, when boundaries are crossed and the bows get tighter and the knots get bigger until they strangle you in a chokehold of micro and macro aggressions, and you asphyxiate because they couldn't simply let you breathe. Because being with the same people that harm you and leave you breathless and worlds apart. Breathless is worlds apart from the moments that take your breath away. Because those racing thoughts of you planning your escape from forced hugs and comments on your body and attacks on your choices feel like a virus that COVID briefly saved you from. Twisted, I know. Bittersweet with cinnamon spice and everything nice. Christmas reminds me of the dessert table, because like addiction, we return to the same table setting, the same ornaments, the same toxic patterns. We enable the sweet tooth, the overzealous phobe, the overbearing insert relative that popped into your head just now, the narcissist, the liar, the complacency, the obligations and expectations, and we use it as a crutch where everybody signs and co-signs bad behavior, because it's the holidays. Christmas reminds me of jailbreak, because real life is suspended and we either break out of our cages to be free or we return to them because the notion of freedom is too daunting to pursue. But it's on our list of New Year's resolutions that get tossed with the wrapping paper. We cannot resolve what we won't name, and the name tags are always blank so we can save them for next year. Christmas reminds me of fallacies that exceed the Santa phenomenon, of how a clueless white man graciously bestows gifts to every child on his nice list without us questioning how the others were deemed naughty. The good ones get their basic needs met, and the bad ones can freeze to death as they sleep on the street and starve. Because they're black and not blue, because they're criminals, though the only thing criminal is their life sentence. Which one am I, the one with a stick up her ass who says, "Let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me"? My outcries echo the Grinch, or perhaps I created him, her, they, or perhaps he exists in all of us who don't subscribe to lies even when they're merry and bright. The stockings are filled with little treasures that were once another's trash, or however the saying goes. But the little things are actually the big things, and the big things always start small. Christmas reminds me of cute kittens and puppies gifted as a temporary fix for whatever permanent damage you can't restore. Though the gift of warmth is life-saving, your commitment comes with a gift receipt and you return to center and realize that you had no business taking care of anyone but yourself until further notice. And now the family is arriving in person on FaceTime on Zoom with their ugly Christmas sweaters, and you're wondering if the only connection you have is the one thing that's allowed to be ugly. Curated and niche so that the discomfort can be named and removed after each performance. Christmas reminds me of coquito and eggnog that blurs the lines of which motherhood to protect. Should we speak up for the teenage mother who was impregnated without consent and forced to have a child to give us this holiday? Or the disenfranchised mom who lives in a neighborhood with increased rates of air, land, and water pollution as a direct result of race and class warfare / animal agriculture, to name a few? Should we speak up for the mom whose udders are metastasized because we stole her milk for a spiked drink, or the mother who was forced to lay eggs that were never golden, but always stolen? Should I stumble across the holidays in muted agony so that others may enjoy the pleasures we abscond with? Christmas reminds me of a chase under the guise of festivity. We chase what does not belong, chase away what does, and run from the release that awaits if only we dare to celebrate the true meaning of Christmas. Giving, receiving, and breaking the goddamn cycle. Healing starts with you, and that's the only tradition to uphold. Merry Christmas, you filthy animals. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. That was
Wow.
so moving.
What a huge collection of metaphors about Christmas, jailbreaks, and all the rest. Wow, there's like a long list of litanies. And thank you for using those metaphors within the theme of the poem. It kept it moving. And thank you all. I'm going to stop the recording here and we'll move on. And Happy New Year for the recording's sake.
Yeah.
Bon année.